Welcome back to another episode of Admit It with Alexis White. Today, I want to talk about the rise of the vibe colleges. What am I even saying? What does that even mean? What is a vibe college? Well, I got inspired to talk about this because there was an article in Forbes, literally entitled The Rise of the Vibe School in College Admissions. Now, this is something I've been talking about for a long time as far as how people choose schools, what the motivation is, and what is changing in the landscape of college admissions, and why we see places like Tulane, CU Boulder, Wake Forest kind of changing. Like Wake Forest was a school, for example, that obviously we're hearing a lot about it now, and the acceptance rate's like below a 20% at this point. So it's definitely becoming very selective and sort of spoken in the same breath as like even like a Duke or a University of Richmond or like one of those schools. I mean, it's definitely, but how did that even happen? It's because of the vibe. Now, when I was in high school, getting into Wake Forest was, I mean, it wasn't easy to get in, but it wasn't that hard to get in. The school probably had about a 50% acceptance rate at that time. But we've seen over the last 10 years, Wake become such a thing. We've seen over the last 10 years, Tulane become such a thing. We've seen over the last 2 years, Boulder. I mean, everybody's always loved Boulder. You know, the Boulder of 20 years ago is a very different school than the Boulder of now. But also the acceptance rate is definitely decreasing steadily. Why? Why are there the changes in admissions? Okay, so first we have a major shift in population, right? So we have population is obviously much bigger. People are still applying to the same schools. They only have a certain number of spaces. Okay, so the numbers don't lie, and I talk about that all the time. However, I think people's attention is really shifting to the attitude of a school, what it offers vibe-wise. And I'm probably going to say that word so many times in this episode that I will never use it again. It will be the most overused word of the college expert vernacular. Okay, so the vibe of a school matters because the world is changing so rapidly and it's so crazy. And I think that in particular, we saw for a lot of people, like post October 7th, for Jewish students, what was the protest climate on a campus? What is the political climate on a campus? What is the campus's willingness to kind of entertain all of that kind of stuff on campus? How safe is it? What are we going to? So those were conversations that I was having a lot with clients over the last couple of years. But it was starting way before that. What is the reason why we go to college in the first place? Okay, so originally, of course, this idea of higher education was not really a choice, right? Like if you had access to it, you could afford it, or it was part of, your lifestyle or whatever. That's what you do. You go to college because you do it so that you can get a job. Ultimately, we're all looking to get a job and make money. Isn't that the idea? Now, barring anybody's professional aspirations, let's say you want to be a certain type of attorney at a certain type of firm, or you want to be a certain type of physician, or you want to, let's say, go into finance at a top firm in New York City. I feel like those three things, we're going to put those three things aside because I do think where you go, depending on what you are looking at, kind of matters for that trajectory. And there's a lot of nuance to that also. Do you have to go to Wharton to work at a top firm, in New York City in finance to be a consultant or to be an iBanker or whatever? Not necessarily, but maybe if you go to a lower tier school, you'll need to get your MBA. I mean, there's all that. But barring those things, what are we looking for in a college now? And I think lifestyle and vibe and an idea that, oh, wait, these 4 years, are they really preparing me for a job? Because let's think about this, you guys. What is going to be available to a student in 4 years job-wise is very different than what is going to be available right now, right? And in fact, I just had Robert Spooler on the pod, who has been pretty much running our test prep division at our private tutoring company for about over 15 years now. I mean, we've had a very long relationship, and he's really incredible at what he does. One of the things he was talking about was, he was a journalism major. And really, after a certain point, journalism became very, very different. The preparation that he had for a career in journalism. Once a company like Craigslist kind of came up in the ranks and started providing essentially free advertising, right? Print media changed the trajectory of all of that. So the business changed completely. Look at how different with social media, with AI, with technology, with computer science, all that stuff. So career readiness. What are we doing here? Well, we're really talking about soft skills. So this idea that the major that you select is so important, or the school that you go to is so important, or whatever, it's not really for the reasons we think it is. And I think that that's kind of what this author is talking about in this article in Forbes, which is basically like people are looking for an experience for 4 years for their kids. Kids are looking for that for themselves, an experience where they're going to foster close relationships. They are going to learn to navigate a system. They are going to feel a sense of community. They're going to feel a sense of safety. They're going to feel a sense of wholeness. They're going to be, and when I say safety, I don't mean like everybody needs to be in, the boy in the bubble and be totally, isolated and sheltered. It's more like a feeling that you can, and yes, for a lot of parents, that is actually the thing. They do want literal safety on campus. And not that I would want anything different for my child as well. But certainly, listen, if you go to Penn, you're still in West Philly. If you go to USC, you're still in South Los Angeles. If you go to, so there are certain things that you have to navigate with respect to those neighborhoods and different areas and whatever. And that's part of the learning experience. It's also part of what we call vibe. So all of that helps nurture soft skills that we need to move on into the real world. And what are schools that kind of have a vibe where you get not only the experience with that stuff that's going to ultimately help you in the job market or whatever, but you get the sports, you get the Greek life, you get maybe you want really good food. Maybe you want access to a really cute college town. Maybe you want access to a really urban area. That's all part of the enjoyment of the experience. And if you're not, and let's be honest, we're paying a pretty penny for this experience, or you're jumping through a lot of hoops financially, with financial aid, with scholarships, with all that stuff to get your kid to have this experience, and you want it to be an enjoyable one. And I learned something actually when I went to High Point last spring. Their attitude, and they have a very, very clean campus. It's very, it's this kind of very shiny country club moment. And I was really here for that. Like I was really there for that. Like I got there and I was like, yeah, I could see the appeal to this for sure. And there were a lot of people who said to me, but it's a country club. And I go, well, so what? If that's what you're looking for, it's right here. And it's way more than that. No question. It offers incredible, incredible programs and incredible depth. And there's just a lot going on there that and it is one of my vibe colleges actually, that I'm going to add to this list. But what their attitude is, why do dorms need to be gross? Why does college need to be a slog and a struggle? Why can't we have good food in college? Why can't college be clean? And it's kind of like, why does it have to be like this kind of, suffer your way through it and then you'll be better for it type of thing? Like we're not out in the wilderness here. So I really liked that philosophy. The other thing, their philosophy too, was if you are used to a certain standard, it's not that you're spoiled. It's that everything you do in your life, you're going to set up to level up. And they've created that environment at High Point with that vibe where like, if you're there for 4 years, you're going to aspire to have that type of experience in other areas of your life when you leave, and you're going to essentially set yourself up for success in their view. And I got to say, after spending 9 hours there, I was like, yeah, I would want this for myself. Every building is beautiful. Everything is well appointed. Everything is set up with the most kind of cutting edge technology, with great access to professionals in the industry. All these things where you go, this is a different concept of college experience. This is a different vibe. They're very career focused. They're very focused on life skills and personal growth. I cite that as a vibe school for me because I think that that really sets an interesting tone for that. Another school that I saw in that area that I really felt was a great vibe school, and is one that's not on this Forbes list, and High Point's not on the Forbes list actually either. Maybe I should talk about the ones that are on the Forbes list because I'm citing that article in the first place. We have the ones that I thought were interesting choices. Obviously, University of Miami. Such a specific vibe. Architecturally, lifestyle, feeling, everything on that campus really feels like it's very resort-like. And I know parents will say the same thing. They'll go, well, it's kind of like being at a resort. And it's sort of like, okay, is there something wrong with that? It's a beautiful place. If that's what feeds you, if you love that look, the architecture, if it's inspiring to you, the palm trees, the walkways, the contemporary architecture, it's different. It's not Hogwartsy. It's not Yale. It's a different look. But I found when I was on that campus, I thought, who needs to go anywhere else? This is pretty great. So Miami's a great vibe school, and that's cited in the Forbes article. They also talk about SMU and University of Richmond and Wake Forest. Okay. SMU is definitely another king of the vibe. That it's got that country club, very clean. Dallas is, that the area feels really safe. Obviously, and again, I'm not saying you're not going to school for the academics, okay? Or I'm saying that it's the so what? Yeah, the academics are there. What am I getting lifestyle-wise that appeals to me? SMU is a very nurturing campus. It feels like a place where you can fail up, and that's what we want for our kids, right? A place where people can try things and not succeed and be okay and realize that maybe they're looking for a different experience. Wake Forest is giving that, I'm not going to say Hogwartsy vibe. I'm going to say it's that beautiful older campus, Southern moment, but it's a very, and you've got your rah-rah at all these schools. But I think that Wake strikes a balance between being that and also, has great academics. And they have rigor. They have all of that stuff along with the great social programs, the Greek life, all that stuff. So I'm seeing a theme here. Everybody wants great social programs. They want cleanliness. They want safety. And there's nothing wrong with that from my point of view. I think that this is an investment and you should have what you're seeking over those 4 years. I also wanted to mention Elon. Elon I saw last spring too, in the same experience when I went to Wake and I went to Duke. Elon is a school that has a total vibe. Now, people will complain that it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's not really in the middle of nowhere. It's just that the town of Elon is not exciting, okay? But it's not like in the middle of a cornfield somewhere. You do have access to, Raleigh, Durham. You do have, you are in an area where there are a lot of colleges, and it's not like you're totally isolated, but the town is kind of a whole lot of nothing. But if you go, I think it's Burlington is the closest town near that, which is about maybe 15 minutes away. So you still have access to shopping and different things. You can go to your Trader Joe's, you can get your nails done, you can do all that stuff, but maybe it's not right there. What Elon does bring is a campus that delivers so much to the kids that you kind of don't really need a lot on the outside. Great pre-professional programs. I was so impressed by their School of Communications and all of the things that they're offering there. I think it's Brian Williams that helped create a program there. Let me double check that so I'm not speaking out of turn. And I thought the facilities were amazing. I thought the architecture was gorgeous, really beautiful brick buildings, Southern, old. It just spoke to me when I was there. And I thought, I would love to go to school here. So, but I really thought the attention that the kids get from counselors, from professors, from academic advising, all of that speaks to that vibe moment. Brian Williams is the honorary chair of the School of Communications Advisory Board at Elon University, so I was not wrong. Yay. But my two main things, and if you happen to take my course, College Board, which you can purchase on my website, you can also do that. There are modules, and there's the module on school selection. Size, location, academic offerings, philosophy, and vibe. Those are my 5 things. And vibe is not last because it's least important. Vibe is there because it's part of this whole experience. And I do cite size and location as things that are very, very important for setting that tone. You know, if you don't want to be cold, don't go to Michigan. Don't go to Ohio. Don't go to Indiana. Don't go to Syracuse, right? That's going to be part of the vibe that you get. If you want a school where you can be outside all year, then Miami is your place. Loyola Marymount's probably your place. UCLA is your place. San Diego's your place. So really start thinking about, do you want to be close to your family? That's also part of vibe. Do you want to be able to come home on Sunday nights and have dinner with your family? If that's going to be part of the experience that you need and want, then you should have that. We have all of these labels for our kids of like, you should go away. You're going to live in this kind of dorm and that's just what it is and whatever. Obviously, you can't have it all, right? You're not going to go to NYU and necessarily get placed in the nicest dorm. NYU has tons and tons and tons of dorms. It's a lottery. You get what you get for the most part. But if you're like, no, it matters to me to have really nice housing. I care about that. And I don't want to get thrown into the wolves. Then you should be looking at schools that offer really nice housing. And if you can get that, then great. High Point prioritized that in an interesting way, maybe more so than other places that I had seen. I also have to say, vibe-wise, I just visited Marquette in Milwaukee. If you want a Jesuit school that is a great size, that has incredible programs all the way around within a city, so you have a beautiful campus within a city, Marquette delivers on that. University of Denver delivers on that. I was just at Bowling Green State University. They also have, if you want to be in the Midwest, perfect college town. Bowling Green is quintessential cuteness without, being necessarily in Ann Arbor. And good luck to everybody. We can all get in there. It's fine. Bowling Green offers all that vibe and more. In a lot of respects at a fraction of the cost and at about a 70% acceptance rate. It's pretty amazing. So that all plays in. So I just want, when you're thinking about schools, especially if you're a junior right now, getting out of the mold of the academics. Now, certainly if a school does not have a program that you need or want for your academics, you probably would be moving on. But if it's generally like you want to do humanities or you want to do STEM or whatever, they generally offer good programs and all those things, then what is it in your heart of hearts that you need or want? As far as vibe, that's going to be taking over, I think, ultimately for whether something has the highest level of academics possible or whatever. So keep vibe in mind. And now we are going to my favorite part of Admit It, which is when we go to look at your questions and see what you are thinking about, what you want me to talk about. Okay, somebody's asking, which East Coast mid-sized university have services for kids with learning differences and ADHD, but are still raw, great campus and lots of other activities? Okay, so this is not Northeast, but Elon, which I just talked about, has a great program for kids with learning differences. And it is raw enough, 50% Greek life. You've got that. University of Connecticut also has a great program, not mid-size, but definitely delivers on the programs with the services, which is going to make the school feel a lot smaller. And of course, you've got the Huskies are, I don't know what their record is in the tournament, but they are a pretty incredible basketball team. And so you got all that too. American University has a comprehensive services program. I do believe you have to pay a little extra for it. It only applies for a student's first year of schooling at the institution, but it definitely is very hand-holding and very, very, very helpful. You're not getting the raw with American. See, you can't have it all, guys. Syracuse also has a lot of support. That's a good one to look for. I should have included that in a good vibe school because that's another one that has all those things, just very cold. Okay. Somebody's asking, how does a student who attends, a competitive school, takes all the honors classes when they're available, has a 4.0 and a few extracurriculars, but isn't like the super leader and all the things, a kid who's kind of introverted, how do you navigate this process? Like, what schools are competitive for a student like that when you don't have like 15 APs? I would say one of the things you should be looking for and considering very seriously is size. For a student that's a little bit more on the introverted side, it does not make sense for that student necessarily to be looking at schools that have 40,000 undergraduate students. That is so intimidating, and that's only going to take a kid who's obviously this kid works hard, but it's intimidating. It's hard to get involved in things. And then in general, things like clubs and different organizations, those are the things that are going to be like the glue for you and finding community are much more competitive. So I would definitely look at schools that are anywhere from the 7,000 to the 20,000 student range. And I know that seems like a giant range, but 20,000 is not 40,000. I would also say that you should be looking at schools that have about a 35 to 60% acceptance rate. Have a really good smattering of those schools, depending on the location, where you want to stay, where you want to be. Do not be afraid of schools that have higher acceptance rates. Those are the schools very often that do the best, most compelling work in creating community and creating situations that are not super hyper competitive, especially on the social side and especially on like the clubs and the organizations. This idea that, going to school that has a 70% acceptance rate is some sort of demotion. Just because you have a 4.0 does not mean you're getting into the school that has the 20% acceptance rate. It also doesn't mean that you should be going to that school. Now, maybe a Wake Forest would be great for a kid like this, but Wake's gotten really selective. So maybe it is more of an Elon, or more of like a Marquette that I was just talking about, because I really like that school a lot. So something to think about, focus on that 35% to 65% or to 60%. And having some variety within that. And make sure you've got at least 3 schools that are on the higher end of the acceptance range that you would be absolutely stoked to go to. That's all we've got on Vibe on today's episode of Admit It with Alexis White. I'm so happy you joined us. Please send me your questions, your comments, things you want me to cover in the podcast to admititwithalexis@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Admit It with Alexis White. If you're working on your college applications and want guidance every step of the way, visit alexiscollegeexpert.com to find resources and support tailored for you. For even more tips, stories, and college insights, make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram @collegeexpert. Until next time, good luck, and remember, you don't have to do this alone.